Another CEO Wisdom Pod, AI edition, rapid fire edition with Michael Earle. He is CEO of Inspekt AI, a drone building inspection company, which I'm really bullish about. The thesis being that us humans, we can check out building facades from an external perspective, but technology can somewhat do it better. Technology can also provide us way more insights than the normal human eye. And drones are very versatile. They can go everywhere. They're very mobile. They're the mobilest thing of mobiles, if I can even say that. Really bullish on the startup. I have heard of the concept before, and Michael is building that at scale with AI. This podcast brought to you by podfire.com. If you want to start, scale, or even be invited to podcasts, get great guests like Michael, exchange insights with them, get subscribers, get views, get leads, get clients, podfire.com. If you want help doing that, that's my podcasting company. Michael, really glad to have you on. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit more about your background.
Sure, great. Hi, Charles, and thanks for having me. I'm an architect who's been very fortunate and been able to travel and design on 4 continents. And over those years, I kind of came up with, I started seeing a kind of a problem that needed identifying, and that's taller buildings and buildings at scale, whether just tall or in terms of size, that have these problems in being inspected correctly. And so we've been able to develop some technology that allows buildings to be kind of scanned every millimeter of a building, and the AI is able to pick up flaws. And we also use thermal technology to find energy loss and on the exterior skin. So it's been an incredible ride, and we're doing that sort of community by community around the world. So it's been a really exciting and rewarding experience for me.
And live from Bangkok, Thailand. So that is quite special right there. Tell me about the current problem that you're fixing in the industry, and what would be the total addressable market here?
Right. So, I mean, our business as a whole, we sort of see about 400 cities around the world that kind of meet our spec. And we see it, well, addressable market is almost too big. So we think of it more of like a SAM instead of a TAM, which, SAM being serviceable market. We're looking to 1 to 2,000 projects per city around the world. So it's an enormous per year. So it's an enormous problem. Once we start doing this on buildings, we realize that most of them need to have this done yearly. Cracks and issues that happen on buildings, we find the second year you see the movement from one year to the next and these kinds of flaws, and it becomes something that our clients really want to watch and repeat. And once they're in this world, they don't want to go back.
And is the Asian market ready for you? Is there less competition there?
I wouldn't say there's less competition. I mean, some of the biggest players in this industry are in Hong Kong and Singapore and some of the cities that we're just launching in. But it's a worldwide issue. And, for example, in Europe, they've just come up with a new Green Deal, which is kind of a multi-trillion euro investment in kind of getting buildings to be having their envelopes be a lot tighter. And so that's kind of an enormous market there. And then in the US, obviously, you have city by city, they've got laws that require facade inspections. But I mean, they're still doing it the old fashioned way, where a guy stands on the corner and looks up or rappels from one point of a building. And it's just kind of silly. It's kind of like a doctor, instead of using an x-ray, he just looks at your finger and says, no, you're fine, and lets you go, right? Or looks at you from 100 meters away. It's really not the way to inspect something.
Right. And why taking like such an ambitious challenge at this point of your career? What led you to actually start the business?
Sure, great question. I mean, we, as an architect, I was very fortunate to design on a bunch of different continents, have a lot of different opportunities, and I saw that at some point it was something that needed to be addressed. And now we're sort of at that crux where technology is caught up to what we want to do, and AI is advanced to a certain point. And also we're kind of at this sort of 75 years past the big building booms of post World War II. And so it's kind of a breakdown age for a lot of buildings. We have a lot of new technologies that are being used on facades that hadn't really been tested. I mean, I met a guy recently who was telling me about new green building materials, and I said, "How have you been testing these?" And he said, "Oh, we spray them with water a day in the lab." And I said, "Well, that's not exactly kind of real world conditions." So it becomes a lot of these materials are not tested, and they need new and advanced ways of inspecting them to keep up with the times.
How could disasters like Surfside condominium collapse be prevented with your technology?
Okay, great question. I mean, we use it in a lot of our decks, a lot of our information. I mean, the reality is that when we scan buildings, we find cracks. The following year, we find a larger crack, and you can see the amount of change that something has from one year to the other. Some of the cracks on Surfside that are further up in the building, obviously are where the salt water got inside and got to acting on the rebar and little by little sort of deteriorating it to a point where some of that obviously moved down through that rebar, and eventually you got to a point where the structure was damaged. So we believe we could have completely solved this problem. In that case, we would have eliminated those risks by at least showing them the problem. But when you see the development of a problem like this from one year to the next, you're not going to ignore it the way you do when you just say, well, it could be better, it could be worse. I mean, this is every millimeter.
And didn't they had like engineers and folks inspect that business? What would be the difference with drones here?
Right. Okay. So they, again, they inspected the basement. They inspected around ground level. I mean, this is kind of classic thing that I get into with new clients, right? They say, "Oh yeah, we had an inspector. A guy came around and he walked around the building, and he made all these assessments. And we look at the report, and there's 10 or 12 images, all that are 2 meters off the ground. And you might have a building that's 150 meters tall, and you're like, what's the point of inspecting everything right at ground level, right? So it's really about the whole building and at scale, not missing any part of it, right? Even if there are drones now that some people say, okay, I saw a spot up on the 5th floor, and they'll fly up to that one point and look around. That's not a scan either, right? Again, it's about everything.
Do you see an automated version of promoting your service, aka sending your drone and selling like a pre-sample image of the building and then sending them an email saying that they could get the full thing, and just pre-offering them value upfront?
Conceptually, I mean, we want to do this at scale, right? So we're, in our business, there are companies that do this only as a SaaS product, and so literally all they do is they process imagery, and then there are engineering companies that are doing this with 10 engineers on the ground looking around and using the drone as one tiny little speck of that. And we believe what we offer is really comprehensive and also easy enough to be able to be used. So I could see a day where that would come by being in a neighborhood. We do drone coverage of full neighborhoods. In other words, we've done some neighborhoods where we've covered 100 buildings, and maybe only 30 of them were under inspection contract. And then we have gone back to some of the others and say, here's some of the issues that you should be looking for. I mean, we believe this is a community solution. Our employees live in these communities, where we're inspecting, and we want to make our motto is basically to make the built world safer and more energy efficient. And making the built world safer is a real thing. Things fall off buildings all the time and cause damage, and obviously hurt people, and in many cases kill them.
Yeah, it's very sad. If I own multiple buildings, let's say that I own 5 of them, like the one you have on the website, which is a tall, probably 16, 20 floor condo with, let's say, 150 habitations or so. How much money can I save if I use your solution via the classic way?
Right. The classic way of like not inspecting at all.
That's the classic way, like people don't expect usually?
Well, they inspect when there's a problem. I mean, I visited a 40-story hotel recently. I was talking to the guy before we started to do work. I said, "No, what do you normally do?" He said, "We wait for the guest to complain." I mean, that's literally their solution, and there is no other solution, right? So, I mean, we've done a lot of inspections on hotels where after 1 month they've saved, tens of thousands of dollars in cost from the energy loss that they have on buildings. So sometimes the savings are enormous. I mean, we have a client right now who's actually suing the developer because there were some significant flaws. And with the AI, it used to be like an engineer would show up and say, we found, we believe that this building is not built up to standard. And then we show up and we've scanned the whole building, and there's really not much argument. You can look at 100,000 images of the building and see every little flaw on that building. It really doesn't come down to, did it happen or didn't it happen? It's not a judgment call anymore. It's a real fact. And so they were able to get a $3 million settlement out of that because of our technology. So in many cases, we're trying to help everybody to have better conditions to live in and to work in every day.
What are your goals for the rest of this year? There's 4 months remaining. What are you focusing your CEO time?
Perfect question. Well, we're just launching an office in Boston. So I just flew back from Boston, and that's we have operations right now in Spain and in other parts of Asia, and we have a bunch of projects going in Los Angeles and out west in the U.S. So the Boston and a couple other markets in the U.S. are what I'm focused on growing at the moment, and then we're focused on Europe as well, but definitely the East Coast of the U.S. for the next 4 months.
Where can people find out more about you, Mike?
Okay, Inspek.ai.com is a great place to start, and reach out to me on my LinkedIn, and look forward to hopefully helping the built world be safer and more energy efficient.
There you go. And I'm your host, Charles Cormier. That was another CEO Wisdom podcast,
Thank you,
AI
Charles.
Rapid Fire Edition. And if you want to start your podcast or scale it or be invited to one, that is my company.